God bless everybody today. It's December 6th of 2023. This article just came out, so I wanted to make you aware of it. This is extremely important. I talked about how we've seen this ramp up of attacks on the northern border of Israel against Lebanon and Hezbollah, and how I believe that front was going to open up because they have been doing a tremendous amount of bombing through artillery and military operations in the area. And so let's look at this real quick, because this could change the game, and this is going to amplify all of the Middle East if this secondary front happens. So let's look at what's going on here. So Gallant, you can see the picture of him right here. He's a defense minister, and he's meeting with the mayors and heads of councils located near the Lebanon border in the north. This is on December 6th. This happened today. He indicates that they will push Hezbollah beyond the Litani River before residents in the northern Israel return home. And so if you go down into the article, this is extremely important. Indicates that he met with all these heads of councils in that area. These have been evacuated since the border skirmishes in October. Around October 7th, they evacuated these areas. So not only have you had evacuations in the southern portion of Israel, you've also had these in the northern portion of Israel, and that they will not allow these people to return to these areas until basically the Iran-backed Hezbollah terror group is driven north of this river, according to Hebrew media reports. And this is extremely important because that means they're going to create an 18-mile buffer zone in Lebanon. That's extreme. They're going to do the same thing in Gaza, and then Netanyahu's talking about controlling the security down there, which is going to cause a lot of problems for the Palestinians and the international community as we move forward, if Israel's going to control those areas, because they're calling for a two-state solution here, and that's not a two-state solution if Netanyahu is going to control that area down there. Well, it looks to me like he's going to start a new front up, and Gallant came to this area to shore up this support in this area, that they're going to go in, create an 18-mile buffer zone in the northern part of Israel and the Lebanon, which is going to cause all kinds of problems for Hezbollah, which will open up a totally different front. And Hezbollah is not Hamas. Hezbollah is a much more organized group of fighters with a lot more rockets and a whole lot more kick than Hamas will ever have. You know, Hamas, if they weren't fortified through Iran, would just be a bunch of freedom fighters out there hoping they could get their act together. But they have been supplied weapons and funds through the Iranian nation, and so they have become, you know, more of a problem than they normally would. But in this case, Hezbollah is a totally different animal, and this could be a really big opening up on another front that's much larger than Gaza. And as you can see, if you look at this article, Hamas defenses have breached in Khan Yunis, which is that second largest city in Gaza, and so they're in the heart of that city, and so there's heavy fighting going on in Gaza right now, and it's been amplified because the U.S. is pressuring them to finish that campaign, which is not going to happen. And now you're going to open up a potential northern front campaign against Hezbollah. As it's indicating here, they're going to create this 18-mile buffer zone, and that 80,000 residents of these communities, which have been located 10 kilometers south of the Lebanon border, have been evacuated and are temporarily staying in hotels and other facilities with funding from the state. And this is getting extremely expensive. This war is getting extremely expensive for Israel. So we're watching all these things happen. I believe this next front is going to open up. This is going to apply more pressure for Erdogan to get into this battle, because he now will then take pity on the Lebanese people, okay? And, you know, he'll want to go and protect them, and they're much closer. And so if you look at the maps, I wanted to show you what's going on the ground. I've indicated on these Syrian live maps, you can click on Hezbollah. You can see the amount of shelling that is going on between the two different groups. This has engulfed the whole area. Gallant's talking about creating a 18-mile buffer zone, which pushes them way into here, up towards this river, okay? And so if you look at the map, so I want to show you something real quick that I think sort of stands out here, and I think is extremely important. So if Israel pushes Hezbollah to this river up in here, and you get Erdogan, which I say is going to get into this war, especially if Israel opens up another front against the Muslims up here, he's going to protect these people. This would cause Israel all kinds of problems. But look at what potentially can happen here, and I think this is extremely important. And it sort of goes along with those dates that I keep talking about. Now, whether these dates will play out, I don't know. I'm just showing you how it aligns up with the paradigm and how this is moving quickly in the time frames that I sort of indicated that this was all going to happen. So if Turkey comes down through this area here, let's do this. If Turkey comes down into Syria, into Lebanon, they would drive down into Lebanon, and then they would end up, if you move forward here, they would end up running down through this area, through West Bank, around Jerusalem to Hamas and the Gaza Strip. That's extremely important, because we're talking about this potential siege on Jerusalem by December 22nd, 10 Tevet, at least based on my paradigm. Now, I had originally thought that in speculation that we would see 10 nations attacking the city of Jerusalem around that time, because it indicates that Jerusalem will be besieged on that very day. But it looks to me like Turkey's going to come down from Turkey into Syria, into Lebanon, around the West Bank, into Gaza, potentially already besieging Jerusalem before you even see a potential destruction of the Kurds in Iran that we're going to see prior to the 10 nations attacking Jerusalem. So the 10/22 date could just mean, based on how it's laid out on the paradigm, that we could just see Jerusalem under siege on this very certain date, which is about 3 weeks from today. Well, it's 2.5 weeks. Today's the 6th. We're going to the 22nd. So you got about 2.5 weeks before that would happen. Now, if Erdogan would get into this, his main goal, well, he'd have two main goals at that point. He'd want to protect these people up here around this area in Lebanon as Israel's attacking them, and he'd also want to get down into the Gaza Strip. Well, the only way to do that without going through Jordan is to come down through here, through the West Bank, and then into Gaza. And so we need to watch how he moves once he invades. And I'm telling you, I believe this guy's going to break out soon. He's trying to get his F-16s from the U.S. and a number of things, but that's not probably going to happen, as we have a Congress that is basically dysfunctional, and they can't even get weapons to Ukraine or Israel at this point. Turkey's probably not going to get their stuff either, and Erdogan's going to get tired of waiting on this process, and he's going to just do what's required to protect these two groups of people in Lebanon and in Gaza. So I think it's extremely important that when I saw that article come out, that we're getting ready to watch an additional front in this whole area up here around the Litani River that's going to open up, and that is going to frustrate Erdogan and Turkey. And I believe that this might be one of the catalysts that gets him into this game. I believe this article works hand in hand with what we were just talking about, those buffer zones, because Turkey will reject a buffer zone plan in Gaza. They would also reject a buffer zone plan in Hezbollah or Lebanon, and so that's going to cause all kinds of problems for Erdogan if this new front takes off, and that happened today also. So Erdogan's watching this pretty closely. He's got a pulse on what's going on here, and so it's extremely important that we keep an eye on what he's doing here. But he indicates that he will not allow a post-war buffer zone with Gaza and control of this buffer zone basically by Israel. He's not going to allow that to happen. And another article that I think is extremely important is that we're watching this Peshmerga brigade start new operations. This started, they actually indicated this article on 11/18 of 23, but it indicates in the article that this would start around the beginning of December, and so this joint brigade has started. And this is extremely important because as we watch all this action in Iraq against our bases and Turkey bombing those northern fronts, the Kurds, which are Peshmerga, are trying to figure out what to do about this. And so the Kurdish Peshmerga forces are trying to figure out how to create a buffer zone between Turkey as they're being pummeled by artillery on those northern fronts of Syria and Iraq, on both fronts, actually. And if you know the Kurds, they basically coexist in both Syria and Iraq, as well as Turkey, Iran, and a number of these areas. And so it's extremely important that we understand that they're being persecuted on multiple fronts in multiple different countries. And this is extremely important to the Daniel 8 prophecy. As the Kurds get pushed down, they're going to break down. ERBIL is extremely important. It's that Kurdistan regional capital. We have a green zone there. When Turkey comes down, they're going to force the Kurds to move towards the east, towards this regional capital. Once Turkey gets into a position to attack the Kurds before they actually go against Iran, the Kurds will break down and form an allegiance or an alliance with Iran. As Daniel 8 indicates, you'll see the Medes or the Kurds align with Persia or Iran, and then once that alignment happens, we will see both nations destroyed by the Grecian king or Turkey. Then once that completes, then they would all head back towards Israel with their 10 nations and go against Israel. And so that 10/22 date is potentially the start of the siege of Israel, which I've indicated on the paradigm will last for almost 2 years or up to 18 months. And so this is extremely important that we follow this path. Now, will it happen that way? I don't know, but we're going to find out soon. This is coming up quickly. So if you haven't got your oil ready, you need to get your oil ready. But when Turkey's rejecting these things, shoring up his international community, finding out who's players on his side, and then we also have the Peshmerga and all these groups getting ready to start operations in December. And I've talked about how this could potentially, if you go into Syria on their side, as Turkey's getting ready to come down, we see a potential attack by the Kurds on Turkey, which fails and then forces them to fall back to ERBIL, just as it happened back in Alexander the Great's time. So we need to keep an eye on these things. This thing is moving quickly. I want to bring these articles to your attention. If you haven't got your oil in your lamp, you need to. And if you have not found the Son of God, Jesus, You need to find that open door. God bless.